Okay, let me share my screen as well. Okay, I believe my screen is now visible to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get started. And this is the agenda. So since this is a demo session, so we are not going to cover the details, the things into details, but this is more about your questions and answers. But these are the few things I'm going to cover throughout this session, and it's going to be around 1 hour, roughly of 1 hour of duration. So if we talk about the course, so course highlights. So what is the objective of this course and what you can make out of this course if you are going to join this? So this is designed keeping in mind that this is going to cover basic to intermediate level details. And this basic to intermediate level will cover all the JMeter aspects and performance testing concepts and terminologies. Okay, so we are going to cover JMeter and performance testing because JMeter is a tool which is mostly used for performance testing only. So uh, we are going to cover these two parallelly. And again, without performance testing concept, learning JMeter is not much easy and it's no more valuable as well. All right, so these are the two major aspects or two objectives of this course. And further extending these two topics, these includes like scripting and scenario creation, and then running performance test. Low system resources may affect. Okay, actually, this is one of my PC I'm taking session from, which is quite old and it's low on resources. But anyway, I believe I'm audible to you guys properly and I'm able to do these stuffs as well. But there was a warning message. But anyway, okay, so uh, upon completion of this course, you would be able to run performance tests and you would be able to um, create a script in JMeter as well. And the scenarios, different performance scenarios. But anyway, we are going to cover these things in detail, that what scenarios are and how to create scripts and scenarios. We will talk about the reporting aspects as well, like what kind of performance report we can generate through the JMeter and what the reporting terminologies are. We will talk about data-driven testing and concept, like you create a script and then you can use input data as a different input data that can be picked from files. So that's the other concept which is known as data-driven testing. And we'll talk about correlation, and the another things we are going to cover throughout this course is the database testing and concept, because JMeter is a tool which is used widely for different protocols as well. But the most of the focus will be on web applications, which is going to be HTTP and HTTPS protocol. But apart from that, we are going to cover the database testing, which will include JDBC protocol. So we are going to cover that aspect. And the integration of Selenium with JMeter. So basically, if you are already having a automation background, then I will show you that how you can integrate Selenium and you can write Selenium-like script or the Selenium-like syntax in JMeter. So you can use JMeter in order to automate the application as well. And finally, we will be looking at the scripting part, like if we have to design a script for REST APIs, then how easily we can do that in JMeter. So mainly these are going to be the key topics throughout this course. Okay, and this is going to be the major coverage of this course. So one of the question, like, what was the question, like, what should be the pre-requirement? Okay, so if you are already having a testing background, if you are a tester, you are aware about the testing concepts and terminologies, then it will be easy to you to learn the JMeter. And since JMeter is a UI based application, so here it don't demand a programming skills. So it's not mandatory to have a programming background, like you should be knowing the Java or any other programming language. So most of the intermediate level works in JMeter can be done, like scripting and scenario designing, as we mentioned, or the data driven concepts or the correlation. So all these things can be done without any programming language knowledge. But if you have a basic programming understanding of Java, so just that will help you designing the advanced level of scripts. Like there are components in JMeter like bin shell or the JSR223. So those components allow you to write your custom codes, like Java like codes in the JMeter, which can further extend the um, usability, or you can say which can further extend the um, ease or the beyond the normal things available in JMeter. So those things can be achieved with little bit of programming knowledge, a basic programming like loops and variable concepts. So that's also does not require a very high level of programming. Okay. So any other questions before we move to the installation and other parts? Okay, so I have a question like what is the duration of the course? So I believe I have answered this question because this is going to be around 8 to 10 classes, and the classes will happen on weekends, Saturday and Sunday. So it's going to be completely 1 month and another 2 weeks around. All right, so if we are good, then let's move to the JMeter installation and setup part. And this is also a quite easy part, like JMeter installation and setup is not something like okay, so it's a straightforward. So before installing and setting up JMeter, the only pre-requirement is that you should be having the Java setup in your system. Okay, so the system can be Windows, Linux, or Mac OS. Okay, because JMeter is a purely Java-based application, so on any platform, if the Java is already set up, you can directly run the JMeter. Okay, so in my system, I already have Java, and I believe nowadays all systems are already having Java set up and installed. So if you have that, so the next step is just to download the JMeter. And if you are on Windows, then simply double click on jmeter.bat, which is inside the bin folder. So let me show you quickly. You have to just Google like download JMeter. And this is the official website, jmeter.apache.org. And from here, The latest version is JMeter 5.4.3. So on Windows machines, go for this. You have to download from binary section, not from the source. Okay, so from binary section, you have to download. So it is recommended to download the zip one for if you are going to run it on Windows machines. And this TZZ extension for Linux or Mac systems. So in my case, I'm going to download it. Okay. Anyway, I already have downloaded it and I have already launch it. So how to do that? Once it's downloaded, just extract it. Okay, and let me show you. If I just open this file location. So once you download and extract it, it will give you this folder, Apache JMeter 5.4.3, and then get into the bin folder. And on Windows machine, you simply have to double click on JMeter.bat. If you double click on it, it will look for the Java setup in your system, and then it will pop up this application. Okay, and on Linux machine, the same concept goes. You have to just execute this jmeter.sh. Okay, so if you already have environment variable set and your Java is set under the environment variable, actually not environment variable, but the path variable on Linux machines. So you can simply execute that jmeter.sh. And this jmeter.sh also has to be can be executed on Mac machines as well, like sh jmeter.sh. So this way you can launch the JMeter. Quite simple. Just download the JMeter. Just make sure that you have already Java set up in your system. Doesn't matter which system you have. And then just launch it by double clicking jmeter.bat for Windows and then executing this jmeter.sh on Linux and on Mac machines. All right, so this is the JMeter. You will get simply open. Okay, and now let me refer you to this website. This is the official website, and I found this is most helpful. Just looking at the very first page. So if we talk about the JMeter, what it is, it's a 100% pure Java application designed to load test functional behavior and measure performance. It was originally designed for testing web application, but has since expanded to other test functions. It was initially designed to test web applications, but now apart from web applications, which are HTTP and HTTPS protocol, it now supports SOAP and REST web services, FTP file transfer protocol, and the JDBC or database via JDBC. This we are also going to look into detail, LDAP protocol, and then TCP, and then another different protocols. So you can test variety of applications with the help of JMeter. And throughout this course, we are not going to deal into much detail of all of the protocols, but once you get the idea of how to use JMeter and what are the components we can use for different protocols, then based on the requirement, you can simply create your test plan for any of the different other protocols. So the only idea is that you have to initially get an idea that how JMeter works, what are the components we can add, what are the things available, and what's the behavior of JMeter. Then you would become comfortable enough to create a test plan or create a scenario for any of these protocols. All right, so I would encourage you to go through this website, learn about the materials available here. These are the quite helpful things on this page. Okay, so now what is JMeter? I'm not going to get into much detail about this. What is JMeter? Because in few words, it's 100% Java application, which is an open source application, which is freely available to use. It does not require any commercial license, and since it's 100% Java application, so it's platform independent. The only thing is required to run this application is the Java setup. So you can simply run this exactly same application on any of the platform, Windows, Linux, or Mac. Okay, and this is now going to be very popular in market because of the usability, the ease of uses, and since it does not require any license, so it's another very big benefit. The enterprise applications are being replaced with JMeter. So most of the organization now acquiring, or basically now replacing other commercial applications by JMeter. So JMeter is being widely used for performance testing in the industry. Okay, any other questions so far?
No.
All right, so seems we are good. Now just let's quickly talk about what is performance testing. So this is one of the definition I have taken from the Wikipedia. So it's a clear definition of performance testing. So in software quality assurance, performance testing is in general a testing practice to determine how a system performs in terms of responsiveness and stability under a particular workload. So the key words to note here is the how a system performs in terms of responsiveness and stability. Okay, so when we talk about performance testing, so it's all about evaluating the behavior of any application, that how it's performed. So what are the behavior we are going to look is the responsiveness and stability. So these are the two main aspects we evaluate. What is the responsiveness and the stability under a particular workload. So basically, we evaluate these two things for any application by putting some workload. Okay, because when we talk about performance testing, we are talking about something beyond functional. Okay, so if there is an application which is performing well when being tested by few of the users, or basically being used by few of the members only, but we can actually evaluate the performance of that application when we overload that application, or when we put some extra load. So basically there are multiple users use those applications, then we have to actually consider the performance of that application when many users are using that. So this is the similar thing here. Like we have to consider the performance of the application by looking at the responsiveness. Responsiveness is something like what is the response time or how fast my application is. And the stability is something that how stable my application is when we put some workload. Okay, so this is what the performance testing is. And this is the similar thing we have to do when we are going to do performance test. So, so the important thing to note here, like the particular workload. So where to bring this workload? And I believe you are aware about this word. Workload is something that puts some some load on any of the application. So if I say that this is an application uh, which allows you to buy some uh, clothes online. Okay, so workload on that application will be like multiple users buying clothes. Okay, so any application which is designed to do some particular task, so that task is being done by multiple users when that application is being used. So so the load or the users who are using that application, so handling those users by that application is the workload to that application. So this is the exactly thing we have to simulate with the help of tool JMeter. Okay, so this happens actually naturally, or this happens to the application when the application is in production or when the application is being used by multiple users. But this is the actual situation we have to simulate artificially. Okay, so there are two things, like application, let's say an application A is designed or basically developed and deployed. So multiple users will start using that. But the problem is, like, if we have not done the performance of this application A, we are not sure that how many users can use these applications, and basically with how many users my application performance will be stable or the responsiveness will be fine. So before deploying this application or before exposing this application to public use, what we do performance testing by simulating multiple users load on this application A, and then we define some limit for this application in terms of responsiveness and stability. Like if this application is being used by more than 1,000 users, okay, then probably it will crash. Okay, so basically these things we find with the help of performance testing, and these 100 users or 1,000 users we simulate with the help of JMeter. So this is what the whole sole objective of doing performance test is. So doing performance test is something like putting a workload against the application and then looking for the behavior that, like, responsiveness and the stability, like how my application response time is and how stable my application is, by putting some workload. And in order to do these things, we need some tools, because we cannot put workload without any tool, and we cannot measure the responsiveness and stability. Okay, so putting workload and measuring responsiveness, we are going to achieve with the help of this tool JMeter. So JMeter is going to help us by putting workload, and before putting workload we should be having a script. So basically JMeter will help us creating and designing a script. So it's a complete IDE, it's a kind of IDE which will help us creating and debugging a script, generating workload against the application, and measuring responsiveness and stability. So basically all these things we are going to do, or we are going to simulate with the help of tool JMeter. Okay, but in order to do these things we have to learn this tool, like how to create a script and how to generate a workload by creating a scenario, and then how to look at the responsiveness and stability under the JMeter. Okay, so I think this is what the whole objective of this course is. This is what we are going to learn. And we talk about the performance testing type. Okay, any question or anything you want to ask? Okay, so I think we are fine. So if I now talk about the type of performance testing, so basically we deal with load testing, stress testing, endurance testing, volume testing, and spike testing. Okay, so all these different testing types can be achieved or can be designed within the JMeter. Okay, so it's just the, in order to create, or in order to run all these different test type against the application, it's just designing the scenario. Okay, so you will learn that we create a script and then we replay that script against the application. So replaying, or when I say replay, like, so replay includes like how many users, okay, we are going to put against the application, for how long period. So we call it duration, and how the users behavior will be, how many users are going to suddenly hit the application, then pause for some time, and then again suddenly start hitting the application. So all these things we refer as designing scenario. And all these different testing, like load, stress, endurance, volume, and spike, is just about designing a different scenario. So when we talk about load testing, so it's a designing scenario for load testing. So when we talk about stress, so it's a designing scenario in term of JMeter to put load on against the application that will put stress. And again, spike testing as well. So let's quickly talk about these different testings definitions as well. So load testing is something that's a regular load against my application. So my application is that it's a kind of load that we regularly put, and this is the standard load my application can happily handle. Okay. When we talk about stress testing, it's something that this is the maximum capacity or the maximum load my application can handle. So key difference is, like, load testing is the standard load my application is handling, but my application is capable to handle more load. So testing with the standard load, not at the maximum capacity, is known as load testing, and testing the application at its maximum capacity. But before finding the maximum capacity, before doing a stress testing to test its maximum capacity, we have to find that. And that's the another approach, that how to find the maximum capacity. But testing the application at its maximum capacity is known as stress testing. So what this means is, like, if we put more load beyond stress load, my application will crash or my application will stop working. And the endurance test is something. So load testing is what, like, the duration of load testing is generally going to be 1 hour to 4 hours. The 4 hours is also, I mean, at the maximum side. So performance testing and specific load testing is done for 1 to 4 hour duration. And this is stress as well, 1 to 4 hour duration. While endurance is something that is done for a very longer period, like 12 hours or 24 hours period. So this is done to see how my application behavior will be if my load is going to run not for 1 to 4 hours, but for 12 hours or for 24 hours. So endurance testing is something similar to load testing, but longer duration. Okay. Now, if I talk about the volume testing, so volume testing focuses on the most data in and out. Okay, so we focus on the area of the application where my application is transferring huge amount of data. Okay, so we design our script in a way, or we choose a flow, or we choose the application transactions, those involves more data inputs and outputs. Basically, it's a huge amount of data my application is transferring and receiving. So testing application in that way is known as volume testing. And one of the interesting testing type is spike testing. So spike testing is something like it's spiking suddenly. So let me give you an example of spike testing, how actually it is in real use case. So if we take the example of IRCTC and the Tatkal scheme, so Tatkal booking. So the Tatkal starts at 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. So what happens at 10 a.m. like suddenly whoever has to book a ticket start booking at 10 a.m. Okay, so a huge number of users start suddenly booking the ticket at 10 a.m. and then after 10-15 minutes those traffics are down. So basically what happens like there are sudden load at the system in a very short period of time. You will notice that at 9:55 there are very less users trying to log in into the IRCTC website, but suddenly at 10 there are high traffics and there are a high number of users started using the application. So in order to look at the behavior of the application, that what the behavior of my application or how my application will perform when there are sudden spikes or there are sudden quick load into the system. So looking at that behavior and simulating that behavior is known as spike testing. Okay, so that was about performance testing type. And now I'm getting into a bit practical. So we are going to just design a manual script in JMeter. Again, when we talk about designing a script, basically it's designing a test plan. So there are two methods available. One is the manual design, like we can create our JMeter script manually, or we can record the application. So there are multiple ways available for recording as well. So one of the recording method available is the inbuilt method of the JMeter itself. And again, there are additional extensions like there is a Chrome extension which allow you to easily record the application. So basically you just go through the application steps and all the related requests will get captured and will get converted into the JMeter script. So this is one of the easy way of creating a script in JMeter.
Is
When
that,
you have
sorry,
okay, yeah,
is that only available for Chrome? Yeah. What about the other browsers?
okay, so as I mentioned, like if we talk about the extension, so the one of the extension that I'm going to use is the BlazeMeter extension, which is available for Chrome. But if you have to use another browser, then the best way is to use the JMeter inbuilt option, which will work on any of the browser. It can be Chrome or Firefox or the Internet Explorer.
Okay.
Okay, so I will be showing the both ways, uh, not right away. I mean, in the coming sessions, that how we can record the script with the inbuilt option, and we can choose the browser we want, like Firefox or Chrome. And again, if there is no such requirement of a specific browser, then we can easily go for the Chrome and we can use the BlazeMeter extension. Why I'm including this BlazeMeter extension? Because I found it easy to record the scripts if the specific browser requirement is not there. So simply Chrome, add an extension and then just start the button there, and you can start going through the flows, and that will automatically start capturing. Anyway, I mean, let's look at the manual approach quickly. And for that, I'm going to use this application. You can play around this application as well. And this is one of the application which is mostly used as a dummy application for performance testing practices. So if I just go through this application, it's a JPT store, and this application has multiple sections. Like this is the launch page. There is a sign in page as well. And again, there are different categories. So manually, if I have to create a performance script for this application, and if I have to include these steps like launch the application and then sign in, okay, the username is going to be J2EE, and the password is also J2EE. So if I have to add multiple steps or multiple transactions to design a script for this application, including multiple steps like launch and then login and then click on category and then choose any of the item, okay, product ID, and then add to cart and then place order. So designing manually all these steps will be quite difficult, and it's also um, oh, I mean, it's difficult as well, and again, it's error prone as well. So there are highly chances that you will get into error by designing manually because of headers and other um, missed parameters. So the best approach is to record the script. But for now, we are just going to design manually by just adding two steps, launch page and click on fish. Okay, so these are the two steps that we are just going to add, like launch page. And we are not going to log in, but just going to click on fish. Okay, so how to design that? For that, you have to have the URLs, okay, for that pages. So basically, these are the two pages, and these are their URLs I have, and then I can convert this into a JMeter script. Quite simple. Go to the JMeter, and if you are having a kind of overview that how this UI looks like. So there are the menus and there are a few buttons as well, like shortcuts kind of things. So it's a save button and then cut and copy and paste. You can zoom in, zoom out here. And this is the button which is used to run the performance test. And there are two other buttons, clear and clear all, to clear the executions. But for now, what you have to do, right click on test plan, add thread user thread group. So basically this is the one of the essential item that you should be having in your test plan for any of the script, or basically for any of the script, you have to have this element which allow you to simulate users, or we refer this as a threads that we call virtual users as well. As I talked multiple times, like for 1,000 users. So all those 1,000 users will be provided by this element or this component called thread group. Okay, so initially you won't be getting anything on this right in test plan, but on right clicking, you can add different components based on the requirements. So since at this initial phase, you might not be aware that what component or what elements you have to add. But if you get to know how to record a script, those components or those elements will be automatically added. But anyway, for now, what we have to do, like add a thread group with all the defaults thing, keep all the things as default, and then add the thread group, right click, add sampler HTTP request. What this is, you might be noticing that there are multiple things now available, like add think time, start, no pauses, copy, paste, duplicate. And on add itself, there are multiple sub items like sampler, logic controller. So these are all the elements. We refer all these things as an elements. So under sampler, there are multiple samplers which are used for different protocols. As I mentioned, like this is one of the application, which is a web application that runs on protocol HTTP or on HTTPS. So for that kind of application, we are going to use HTTP request. And if the requirement is to test a database, then we should be adding JDBC request. So these samplers contains different items which are for different type of applications. All right, so currently we are designing for a web application. So we are going to add HTTP request. And once we add, now we get multiple details here to fill. So one is the protocol, one is the server name and the port, and then the path. So now if I come back here, so what I have to design a script for launch page and for clickfish. So this sampler HTTP request, one sampler for one request. So for this request, I have to fill these details under the first sampler. The protocol is HTTPS. So what I can do, I can type HTTPS here, and the server name or IP part is going to be this one. I have copied this and I can paste it here. And port is nothing specific here, so we are not going to put port any other port. But if your application is running on some specific port, you can mention that as well. And this part is going to be under the path section. Okay, and now I can rename this page as well with a name like launch page. All right, and then I have to add another page for clickfish. So I see that these things are common, these are common. So the easy thing is like right click on it, make a copy or make a duplicate. Okay, so if you make a duplicate, all things will get as a another copy, and then you can rename it like click fish, and you have to change a bit like this part. You can just paste it here. Okay, so if you are aware that this is the query part, okay, so there are two query paths. View category is equal to nothing and category ID is equal to fish. So you can simply put the query part under the path section as well, but the recommended way is like you should be adding the query part under the parameters by just clicking here, like add what should be the name, view category, and the value is nothing, so nothing. And then category ID, again another add category ID, and then value is going to be fish. But this will work as well here. So let's be the query part, the query parameters under the path section for now. And I have renamed it, but it will reflect once you click out of this sampler. Okay. So now under this thread group, I have designed a script with two pages. One is the launch page and one is the clickfish page. And one of the another important element I have to add by right clicking on thread group, add listener view results tree. So this view results tree is going to show you all the details of this request. So what you sent and what the server sent you, basically what you received, what are the headers you received, what are the response body you received, what was the response time of this page, and all other details. So all those details about the samplers we are going to get under the elements listeners. And there are multiple listeners as well for different purpose. And I have added view results tree, which is used for detailed reporting of the sampler. Basically, this is used in initial phase when you are debugging or when you are looking in the detail of the script. So better to use view results tree. But again, there are summary report and aggregate report listeners as well that will give you a high level of the report, that how many iterations you made and what's the high level status. So let me add the summary report as well. Okay, so adding these 4 items, basically 5 item, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, my simple test plan is ready. Okay, ready in term like I can run this test plan and I can look for the response time of these pages. And again, I have a control to increase the number of users as well. Like I can run this test plan or run this script with 2 users or with 3 users. Okay, but for now, let's go with the default 1, 1, 1, and then look at the view results tree and click start here. Since I have not saved it, so it's asking me to save, but you can ignore it as well for now by saying no. And if you look at the view results tree, okay, so you have noticed that this this button was faded and these 2 buttons were highlighted, stop and stop shutdown. But what has happened so quickly in 4 seconds only, these 2 pages has been sent and received by the through the JMeter. Okay, so I have made a request for launch page and click fish. And if you look at the detail, the load time was 2773. And all these details, which are the times, are in milliseconds. So basically 2773 millisecond, and the connect time was 2574 millisecond. The latency, what was the size, what was the sent byte, what was the header, what was the size in bytes, body size in bytes, and a lot many details. Okay, so as I mentioned, that view results tree is a listener that gives you more details about the execution. And you can look at the request as well, what request you sent. And under response data, you can look at the response body as well, that what response you received. But looking at the raw HTML data is not making much sense. So what you can do, like you can change the view from here to HTML, simply HTML. Okay, and then it will show you a kind of HTML formatted view. And on click fish, so this is how the page looks like. And now if I look at the summary report, it shows me the high level kind of summary of the execution or of the run. So this is showing like I made 1 sample for this launch page, and the average response time for this page was 2.7 second. And for this page, it was just 165 millisecond. Okay. So these 2 buttons will help you clearing this result if you want to run this test again and not to keep the previous data. So these 2 buttons will clear the data from the listeners. Okay, I think you have some understanding on this manual designing. And as I mentioned, that designing a script manually in JMeter is a bit time consuming, and it's a bit error prone, and it's difficult as well. So we go for the recording approach. And I mentioned that there are 2 ways of recording available. One is the inbuilt JMeter option, and another, not exactly 2. There are additional plugins and additional options available as well. But we are going to focus on these 2 approaches: the inbuilt, and one is the extension, which is BlazeMeter extension. Okay. Any question, or I'm just going to um, explain this thread group a little bit by just changing these users and the loop count, so that you can get more understanding how this thread groups works and how the threads or users works in this JMeter.
Yeah,
Can
please.
we add more than 2 listeners for the reporting?
Sorry, I mean, your question is that can we add more listeners?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, you can add more listeners. Like there is another listener, which is view results in table. Okay, so this is another one listener. So initially you can just experience the different columns available in the listeners, and you can try understanding. But once you get expertise, you will notice that this view results, this summary report or the aggregate report, basically having a single listener will give you fair idea about the execution. But for now, you can have any number of listeners you want. You can have all those in a test plan. All right, I was having another question, please.
I said carry on. Yeah.
All right, so this is a thread group. Now I have a option to increase the number of threads or users, and then there is another option of loop count. Okay, so now change this loop count from 1 to 2 or from 1 to 3. Okay, so what I am doing, I'm having a single user, and I'm saying that this user is going to repeat the things 3 times under this thread group. Now just try to understand the hierarchy. Okay, so the hierarchy is that this thread group is the parent of these two, or basically all these 3 as well, so all these 5 as well. Okay, so all these 5 elements are the child of this thread group, because it's a parent child hierarchy kind of things. Okay, I can make this view results tree a child of this by dragging to the launch page. Okay, so now this view results tree has become the child of this launch page, and now it will be having a scope of up to this parent only. Okay, so it's a kind of hierarchy. It's a child, parent, and grandparent hierarchy. Okay, now this is going to be this thread group going to be the grandparent of this view results tree, and this launch page is now the parent of this view results tree. Let me put it out. Now all these 5 are the child of this view results tree. So anything I apply on this parent, on this element, is going to be applicable for all of the childs. Okay, so what I'm now doing, I'm saying that this thread group is going to generate one thread or one user, not to confuse about this thread and user. These are the similar term used for threads and users. So when I say threads, just relate it as a user, or when I say user, just relate it as a thread, which is generated by this thread group. But in most of the cases, I'm going to use the term threads only. So here one thread, and I say that repeat 3 times. So what will happen? This thread group will repeat these 2 childs 3 times. Though these will also be repeated. So what the meaning of repeated, these 3 items will get repeated means all these 3 items will get the result of these 2 items. Okay, so simply
This
before
provide a
running,
different type of result in different formats.
I mean, sorry, can you please repeat your question once again?
This listener provide the different type, means same report in different ways.
Yes, exactly. Same report in different ways. Like view results tray gives you much more detailing. Like here you can get the, if you go back to text, you can get the all the response data received. Okay, while these listeners don't have those capability. These listeners will give you the high level summary that this much data, like average bytes, what was the average bytes you received, what was the average response time of that request was. While if you have to get into more detail that what was the actual response data I received, then you must be looking at the view results tray. All right, so The good thing before running any test is to clear all the data. So this clear all will clear all the data from all the listeners, and the clear button will clear the specific listener only. So whatever I have selected, and if I select clear, that will get cleared. So if I select clear here, this will be not impacted. But if I select this and simply click clear all, I will notice that all my data is now cleared. So clear will clear all the listeners' data. Now let me run it one more time. Do notice that I have repeated the loop count to 3. All right, so what has happened? So things are happening very quick. This is the first iteration, launch and click fish. And then this is the second iteration, launch and click fish. And this is the third iteration, launch and click fish. Now I believe you got the fair idea that there is a single thread repeating all the childs 3 times. Since we have 2 childs here, so all these 2 childs are getting repeated 3 times. And this is what we are getting into the view results tree. Now looking at the view results summary, you will get a different picture. Like launch page has 3 samples because this has been repeated 3 times as well. So summary report will give the specific request numbers, how many time it has been performed, what was the average time, what was the minimum out of these 3 samples, what was the maximum out of these 3 samples, was there any error percentage, or what was the throughput, like how many requests per second per minute we are making to the application, and there are another details, the data sent and received. Okay, and the view results in table gives us the specific each and every items with their related details. Like this was started at this time and launch page has happened. The response time was 551 ms, and this was the byte, this was the connect time, and other details. All right, so the good thing is most of the things in JMeter can be done on mouse clicks only. Okay, you can copy paste, you can drag drop, you can simply right click and disable this element. So now I'm having it inside the thread group, but not as an active element. So if I clear and now run it once again, since I have disabled it, it is no more going to take part, and I will notice that my launch page is only happening, not the clickfish. So this is what the ease and simplicity of JMeter is. You can simply design your test plan, debug it, and record it, design it, debug it, and then finally design the scenario, run it, and look for the results. All right. So I think you have a fair understanding on this thread group, and the scenario will change if I make it 2 users. So what will happen? 2 threads. What will happen? Now 2 threads will initiate, and each thread will repeat 3 times. Okay, so there will be 2 different threads repeating all the child elements 3 times. So if I clear this all and run it one more time, you will notice 6 launch pages, 6 samples, because this is, if you look at the view results tree, this is thread 1, this is also thread 1, this is also thread 1, and this is thread 2, this is thread 2, and this is thread 2. So thread 1 3 times, and then thread 2 3 times. Okay, so 2 threads repeating all the items 3 times.
What is the mean by ramp up period? And
So
why we are
ramp up
defining this?
is something like if we have, let's say, 10 threads. So if I put a ramp up of 1, what will happen? All these 10 threads immediately ramped up in 1 second and will be ready to hit the launch page. So basically what will happen? All 10 threads will start hitting launch page immediately. If I put the ramp up of 10 seconds, so what will happen? My 10 threads will start within 10 seconds. So first thread will start in first second, another thread will start in second, third thread, in 3rd second, and similarly last and 10th thread in 10 second, and all those will complete 3 iterations. So this is a kind of a smooth entry into the application of the threads. Make sense?
Sir, one more question.
Mhm.
Sir, what is the strategy to check the timing of like load testing timing? How we manage? How which is the good time?
So good time, I mean, which is the good listener you mean?
Means
Or
I want to know about
okay,
uh,
okay,
the
now
yeah,
I believe I got
load
you.
time. Yes.
So you mean that what is the expected standard response time of the
Yes.
application?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so yeah, so I mean that depends upon the type of application, and there is no straight line that 1 second or 3 second or 5 second is a good response time. That all depend upon the application and the complexity. So um, so to answer this, what I would say, before starting your performance test, ask for the SLA document, which is known as service level agreement document. And what the service level agreement document is, that is decided by the architect and the business decision makers. So if I am the owner of the application, if I take the responsibility and this is my application, so I should be having some criteria for my business, like my application launch page must be within 2-second response time, and my login page must be within 3-second response time. So such kind of SLA you should be asking to the architect or to the business uh, teams, okay, or to the product managers. What is the acceptable response time of my application? So they should be providing those things. Okay, if they are not providing, now your responsibility turns into finding out the responsiveness of your application by putting the load. And again, there should be some criteria, like we started increasing the load. So with 100 users, the response time is 2 seconds. With 110 users, the response time is 2.5 seconds. With 150 users, the response time jumped to 4 seconds. So these stats you should be presenting to the architect, to the business owners, to the product owners, and then now they can decide that, yeah, this is what the acceptable thing, or this is what the acceptable response time for my application, and this is what the business kind of business limit we can put for the application. So there is no such straight line, and there is nothing we can define that's a good response time for any of the application, because it's a depend upon the type of application, what computation my application is doing, what complexity my application is having.
Okay, sir. One more question. I think it is also depend on the expected user who want to work on applications. I think
Yes, I mean the SLA is not just about the response time, but the SLA is about the
number of user.
number of users, or it can be about the error percentage. Okay, so multiple things can be the factor. Okay, it's not just the response time, it can be limited by number of users as well, or the number of requests per second as well. So all things can be considered as a SLA.
SLA provide the all ramp up period, a number of threads, and loop count. The expected.
Yes, so yeah, I mean these things can also be asked as a part of SLA, or this should be provided as the part of SLA, that my application should support 100 users within 2 seconds. Okay, or my application should support 150 users, not more than 0.6% error. Okay, my login page should support 100 concurrent logins, not more than 3-second time. So such kind of statements are provided within SLA documents.
It's require any coding to automate JMeter?
Sorry.
Means we are going to use any coding language to automate.
Okay, so in most of the sessions, we are not going to deal with the coding. There are 1 or 2 sessions which are going to related to JSR 223 and bin shell scripting. So in that, we are just going to use basic Java concepts.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Any
quick,
other question? Yes.
quick question. Can we use JMeter to test the cloud-based applications?
Okay. So what exactly mean cloud-based?
Yeah, the application is developing in cloud, Azure cloud.
Okay. So it doesn't matter where the application is deployed, either on cloud or in premises.
Yeah.
Because we only should be having the access to the application from where we are hitting the JMeter. So if my application is on Azure cloud, that doesn't matter. I should only be able to access the application, because JMeter objective is, or the JMeter um, um, I mean, the objective of JMeter is just to put the load on the target. So the target is deployed on Azure or it's in premises, that doesn't matter. We can test that.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. Thank you.
One question here, like number of threads, like it was 10 and the ramp period was 10. So it means that one user in 1 second.
Yes. So if I try drawing something, so ramp up is something like if I put a ramp up of for 10 users. Okay, it's not that good. Just a second. If I have 10 users, okay, with ramp up of 10, so this is the timeline. So once I start my test, what will happen? My users are going to enter the system like this, okay, and then complete. So all my users have to complete 3 iterations here, okay. If I say let's run it for infinite, so what will happen? My 10 users will ramp up in 10 seconds and they will run for infinite loop until I stop that manually. Okay, so this is the thing. So now let's suppose that here they are getting into infinite duration or infinite loop. So what this 10 and 10 means, like these are the number of users: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So these 10 users here are going to enter the system. So first user is going to enter at first second. Second user, this is the seconds. Okay, so this is the second. 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, 4 second. So like this. So third user is going to enter at third second, fourth user, fifth user, sixth user, and all these users, they enter, they will continue for infinite. Okay, seventh user. So you will see that these users are getting into system in a linear manner. And on the other hand, if I say my 10 users in 1 second ramp up, so how this graph will look like? This is my users, okay, 10 users, and moment I start the test, all my 10 users suddenly, even more sharp, all my 10 users, because the ramp up time is 1 second, right? So my 10 users will immediately ramp up in 1 second, and then they will continue for infinite. So what is the difference? Here, my application will get sudden load of 10 users immediately. So it will generate a kind of a spike. It's a sharp load and a sudden load to the application. While this 10-second ramp up is a smooth entry of users into the application.
So what happens if we have 100 users and the ramp up time is 10 seconds, right? So in that case, in each second,
10
user will
user,
enter.
yeah.
Okay.
So that will divide it 100 by 10. So it's a
Okay,
10
okay.
user per second.
So, and what is these like in the thread group? There are few options like continue, start, next thread group. What are these? The action to be taken after a sampler error. Continue. Next.
All right. So, I mean, these are the controls of the threads. When you were running this with infinite, okay, so let's say at some instance, this launch page is failed because of the server error, okay, because of the some problem. 500 and some response code are received, and your samplers, this sampler is failed. So on that case, what you want? So you want to start the next thread loop. Let's say you have 100 loops. So what will happen? Let's say for the first user, so there are 10 users. Okay, so for any user, if the user is at 50th iteration, and now at the 51 iteration, there was an error. So on that error, how the things will be handled for that thread? Okay, so for that thread, I can say, okay, skip the 51st iteration and go to the 52nd iteration and try hitting this page. Okay, so this will happen. So that step will, that iteration, so we have 100 iteration. So any iteration gets error, that will be skipped and will again start. Okay, and I can say stop thread. So a stop thread, what will happen? So any thread gets an error will be get out. So now rather than 10, we should be left with 9 threads only. Okay, again stop test. So the test will be stopped. I don't want the test to be continue if any of the thread gets an error. So these are the controls we can put. What will happen if any of the sampler gets the error? And stop test now is the forceful stop. Immediately stop. Do not wait for the gradual stop. So these are the controls.
Okay.
Sir, I have one question. If we want to perform stress and load testing with 100 user,
Okay.
so what will the means end line to define this is pass or fail?
See, the first thing I would like to clear that load and stress are two different. So if we put 100 users, those might be the load, or those might be the stress, because load is something which is a standard load, and stress is something which is the maximum load. So if my application is able to handle the maximum 200 users, might be 100 users are just the load and not the stress. Now coming back to the question, what should be the criteria to define my test is fail or pass? So as I mentioned, that the SLA document will give you the requirement. Service level agreement document gives you the requirement that if you are testing with 100 users, then you should be having the objective of the test. Like my objective of test is to hit the application with 100 users and to see that my response time should not go more than 2 seconds, or my error rate should not go more than 0.5 second, more than 0.5%, sorry. Or another criteria that with 100 users, I must be able to make 50 requests per second, something like that. So there should be some objective initially set for your performance test, and then you have to decide based on the objective or based on the requirement you got from the SLA, that were you able to meet that criteria or not. Then you can say my performance test is fail or my performance test is pass. There is no such straight line for any of the run, and all these depends upon the application, as I mentioned.
Means all requirements are provided by the SLA. Means how many user we can use to test testing.
Yes, exactly. So
Okay.
all things are derived from SLA, or you have to present the number. If you don't have an SLA, then you have to present the number that I have performed my run with 100 users, and I saw my application response time was this, and my error percentage was this, and I was able to make this much request per second or this much request per minute. So these numbers you have to present, and then it's a business call to decide whether they can consider it as a fail or as a pass.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so there is a question that can we post the next week schedule, please? So next week, I mean, this is the demo session, and the next week we are going to start from a very beginning. So anyone who is not attending this session would be able to easily catch up the thing. So I will try to cover the whole things we covered just today, and some new topics. I mean, it's going to be basic only. So I don't have exactly schedule for next week. Probably I can share that, but it's not going to be quite hard. And for the first session, you should not be very following the I mean coming back with the homework. So let's skip for the first session. I mean the coming session as well. And next onward, I will try to give you the topics for the next session. All right, I think um, I am done with the demo session, and if any other questions you guys have, you can just ask, or later on you can post those questions as well.
How many classes will take to complete this course?
It's going to be around 8 to 10 classes.
Okay. Then we are able to check every performance for any website. Okay.
I mean, post taking this course, where you be able to test the performance of any website. Is this your question?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, in detail, we are going to cover HTTP and HTTPS protocol and the JDBC as well. But yes, exactly. Since what are the difference with different application is just the protocol and the way we design the script. So only the script part and the protocol is different, but the scenario and the running the test, looking for the result, analyzing the result, all these things are going to be similar for any application. So there is a very few part which going to be different for different applications. So I would say yes, you would be able to test different protocols easily once you get the idea of this HTTP and HTTPS and the JDBC protocol.
So tomorrow will be class or not?
Okay, I'm getting your voice not that loud, so
Tomorrow
I
will
have
be class or not?
no. So tomorrow is not going to be any class. The final class, the final batch is going to start next Saturday.
Bad timing?
I think the timing will be in morning itself, 10 to 11:30 something. The final timing will be communicated to you, but it's more going to be from 10 a.m.
Okay.
All right, so I believe I have answered all the questions, but anyway, if you have any other question, you can post those. You can post at jmeter@way2automation.com. All right, so I'm closing this and okay, so where to find the registration link? After this session, you are going to get an email, and that will include all the registration and fee related details. So all of the attendees will get the email. All right, guys. So thank you. Thank you all for joining. And I'm closing this. Thanks. Bye.
Right.